The moment everyone feared has finally arrived. The Federal Reserve just broke, and your dollars may not survive what happens next. The moment a financial empire begins to fall is never loud. It never starts with a headline, or a speech, or a sudden shock. It begins quietly, subtly, in the shadows, and by the time the world notices, it's already too late. For decades, the Federal Reserve stood as the guardian of the global financial system, the protector of the dollar, the stabilizer of the American economy, the institution trusted to guide the world through crisis after crisis. But today, that image is crumbling. Something has broken, not a single event, not a single decision, but a chain reaction that began years ago and is now reaching its final stage. And the most shocking part? Most people have no idea it's happening. As you listen to this, the value of your money, your savings, your future is quietly slipping away. And if the current trajectory continues, by 2026, the dollar you hold today may be worth far less than you ever imagined. To understand how we got here, you have to go back to a simple truth. A currency is built on trust. Trust that the government won't overspend. Trust that the central bank won't overprint. Trust that the value of your money will remain stable. But over the years, that trust has been tested, stretched, and ultimately shattered. When crisis after crisis struck, the Federal Reserve responded with the same weapon, printing money, flooding the system with trillions of dollars, lowering interest rates to near zero, creating an economy built not on productivity or strength, but on debt, mountains of debt. For a while, it felt like magic. Stocks soared. Housing prices exploded. Companies borrowed freely. People spent more than ever. America looked unstoppable. But it was an illusion, a bubble disguised as prosperity. Then came the moment the Fed feared. Inflation, rising prices, falling purchasing power, the cost of living climbing faster than the average income. Americans felt it every day, at the grocery store, at the gas station, in rent, bills, and the shrinking balance of their savings accounts. The Fed tried to reassure the world that everything was under control, but behind the scenes, they knew the truth. They had lost control. If they raised interest rates, the economy would break, banks would collapse, debt would become impossible to pay. If they lowered interest rates, inflation would explode again, the dollar would weaken further. Global trust in American currency would collapse. No matter what decision they make, the system suffers. This is what it looks like when a financial empire reaches its breaking point. But the story doesn't end in America. Around the world, nations watched closely. China, Russia, Brazil, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, India, countries that once depended on the US dollar for trade, oil, and global influence, started moving away from it. They formed new alliances, new payment systems, and new currencies. The world was sending a message. We no longer trust the US dollar. And once trust disappears, value disappears. That's how currency collapses begin. Not with panic at the bank, not with riots in the street, but with quiet decisions made in boardrooms thousands of miles away. Foreign governments selling US bonds, big investors shifting wealth to commodities, nations trading oil in other currencies, banks tightening lending behind closed doors. A slow, silent retreat from the dollar. By the time the public realizes what's happening, the damage is already done. And the warning signs are everywhere. The national debt is rising faster than at any time in US history. The government is spending more than it earns. The Fed is trapped between inflation and recession. The global dominance of the dollar is fading. This is not speculation. This is not conspiracy. This is the math of a system that can no longer sustain itself. And if nothing changes, by 2026 the erosion of the dollar's value could reach a tipping point. Not a total collapse, but a deep devaluation. Your savings shrinking, your purchasing power falling, your money buying less and less every month. This is the real threat most people don't see coming. The collapse of a currency is rarely sudden. It's gradual, invisible, slow enough that people adapt, until the day they can't. Many Americans already feel poorer today than they did 5 years ago. That trend isn't accidental. It's the result of a system stretched to its breaking point. Think about this for a moment. What happens when the world stops treating the dollar as the global standard? What happens when the Federal Reserve can no longer control inflation? What happens when the trust that holds an entire currency together finally snaps? You get the perfect storm, a storm that affects every dollar you earn, every dollar you save, and every dollar you hope to use in the future. But amidst all the chaos, there is a deeper truth. Every financial collapse in history has led to a transformation, a reset, a new chapter. Rome's currency collapse led to centuries of innovation. Britain's decline gave rise to new global economic systems, and America's coming monetary storm will likely open the door to a world where money is digital, decentralized, and controlled by no one nation. The future won't be defined by the weakening of the dollar, but by the rise of something new. The people who survive this shift won't be the ones with the most money, but the ones with the most awareness. Because awareness is power. Preparation is power. Understanding the moment you're living in is power. The Federal Reserve may be broken, the dollar may be weakening, but you still have time to prepare, time to understand the shift, time to protect yourself before 2026 arrives. Most people will ignore these warnings until it's too late, but you're here, listening, learning, watching the signs. And that alone puts you ahead of millions. The storm is coming, the Fed is struggling, the dollar is fading. But the future belongs to those who see the danger early, and you just did.